Hi, everybody. It's Holly Burns of Holly Burns Psychic, and today I have a special treat. I'm going to speak with the author of Clear Vessels, Steven Hoffman, who's a good friend of mine, and this book is a gem. I'm telling you, I've already read through it twice, and last night when I was prepping for the interview, I just thought, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. Every paragraph is so well written, and he just fills it full of really it's only useful information. There's no fluff in this book. So it's like a textbook. It's just wonderful. And it teaches you how to be a clear channel so that you can really live your life with clarity and focus. But I'm going to let him explain that. So let's bring Steve in now. Hi, Steve.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Yes, I can. Oh, so nice to have you. So nice to have you. I'm so excited. I just explained to everybody how your book is like a textbook to me. I've read it twice, and I'm serious. Every page is just full of good information for people. I was trying to narrow it down last night about what we should talk about, going through the book again, and I was just like, oh my God, this is gold. You said my stuff was gold, and I'm like, this is pure gold. The book is just so useful, and it's like I told the listeners before I brought you on that there's no fluff in the book. Everything in there is useful information. You really whittled it down to just the core of what is good, and everything in there is just magnificent. So I'm so excited to talk to you about it today.
Well, I have a few comments based on what you already said. Hopefully it's not as boring as a textbook. I remember reading textbooks in school, and hopefully it's not that boring. The spirit guides told me to use a lot of stories. I think stories are more interesting. So a lot of stories, and of course, a lot of stories from you. And you mentioned, I said your stuff was gold, and that was really the final trigger. I always had a hunch to write a book. And then one day I was reading a reading from you, and I said out loud, I'm like, this is gold. And that's when I knew I had to write the book and share this information. So thank you very much. You were a big part of getting to this point in time.
Oh, no, absolutely. My pleasure. I remember when you told me that, and I was like, you go, guy. This would be exciting. I can't wait for it to come out. And I waited and waited and waited forever for it to get all the editing process, and all that took a lot longer than both of us had thought it was going to take. So it's been a long year waiting for the final stuff to get done, and I couldn't wait for it to come out. So I can't wait for everybody to read it. One of my favorite things about the book is your style of writing and the way you do tell your stories. I mean, I can just get there. When you write it, I can just get right into your moment. I can feel your emotions. I can feel the weather. I can feel the temperature. I can feel your clothing. You're explaining, I mean, everything. You write like such an experienced writer. It's just phenomenal for me. You're such a natural at it, and you really have the ability to put us into your life.
Well, that took some practice. I used to be a FDIC bank examiner, and that's pretty dry. And they teach you how to write like the government. And so I'm glad that I graduated away from that writing style. And with regards to the timing, you're right. This has almost been 2 years since it started, and we thought it was going to be done last year. And one of the big lessons of the book is the universe has perfect timing, and when things aren't working well, you need to back off and use these. And there was 4 months this year where I did nothing. And just waited for the next sign, and then you came up with a connection for me, and it takes, I think Lao Tzu said, can you be still long enough for the mud to settle in the water and to become clear, so that the action is clear?
Ooh, I love that.
I've had to let the mud settle for long periods, and then the elders will kick in, and spirit guides will give me signs, and it takes off running, and then hits a dead spot, and you just, it's a balance of ease and inspired action. And if you're not inspired, you're probably supposed to be using ease at that time.
Absolutely. 100% agreed there. I was going to ask you if you can explain in a simple explanation. First of all, do you have your copy of your book there to hold up so people can see your beautiful cover? And they can see what
Yeah.
the book looks like. Good, because it's not in print quite yet, so I don't have a copy yet. I can't wait. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Can you hold the cover up a little bit straighter too when you're done? Yeah, yeah. There you
Ignore
go.
this
Yeah,
not for resale sign, but that will be
that's okay.
disappearing. Yeah. So
Yeah, and feel free to show the inside too. It's not very thick, but like I said, so that's what's great about it is that you can pick it up and you can read it in an airplane trip if you want to. You can read it in a day at the beach on vacation. You can read it in a car trip. Um, and like I said, but you're gonna want to bring a highlighter because for me, I was like, oh my God, I have to go back. I want to remember this. I have to underline this paragraph. After going through college, I like to read all my important spiritual books with my highlighter and my pen so I can remember these things later for myself so they really sink in. So,
every book I own is highlighted. So
oh,
that means the
good.
book is good, right? So
Yeah, we went through, and it means we went through college in the 70s and 80s probably before we had stuff on computers. That's probably what it means.
before Kindles where you can electronically highlight, but
That's right.
yeah.
That is right. I was wondering if you could explain, since nobody's read the book yet, since I'm the production interview person here, where people haven't had a chance to buy the book, although they can pre-order it. Just so you guys know, you can order it at clearvessels.com, and you can get a pre-signed signed copy from Steve with free shipping, and we'll tell you more details about that at the end. There's also some treats coming at the end of the interview, so stay tuned. I was wondering if you could just explain in your own words what exactly you mean by being a clear vessel and why you chose that name for the book, so we can kind of hone in on where you're coming from with that, so people can
Yeah.
understand.
As you know, a lot of thought went into that title. It had to be just right. Uh, Not everyone probably knows what clear vessel means right off the surface, so I'd be glad to explain. But much of my life was about efforting and working and pleasing the outside world. Everything was external, pleasing parents, teachers, coaches, employers. And if something didn't work, you just worked harder, right? My dad was a workaholic, and that's what kind of in the Midwest what you learn. And that led me nowhere except to frustration, and the divorce was kind of a tipping point. But being clear is about getting rid of all that garbage, finding stillness, quietness. There's great wisdom within. Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," and I never really knew what that meant. Even being raised Catholic, they just didn't teach us that. And like most biblical quotes, I figured it was kind of a parable that meant something else. It didn't really mean go within, but I found that it really is quite literal. You go within your body, and instead of focusing on the outside world, you go within. So the book has two parts. The first part is clearing, getting rid of that noise, going within. Another word for clearing might be healing. I think, I have this little saying, there is fear and there is now. Whenever you're thinking about the future, what you need to do, how hard you need to work, you're not here now, you're in the future. So there's fear and now. So, Eckhart Tolle wrote The Power of Now, and that was influential. So becoming clear is getting rid of the garbage. And once you do that, I found you can really tap into, I don't know if it's a universal wisdom, I don't know if it's your spirit guides or God or your higher self or all of that, but you start to become clear in your head, and it opens up a vacuum. And then from there, all kinds of positive thoughts come. And then the second half of the book is dealing with those high vibrating energies. You're always talking about high vibrating ideas, Holly. And that's almost a whole different concept. Most people are just struggling with negative energies. But if you create that opening, that space, practice making gaps in your life every day, all of a sudden this positive energy starts flowing in. We're like, hey, this is something new. How do I play with that new energy? So becoming clear is really that first step in the process.
Awesome. And what are the benefits that you've gotten from doing your process that you explain in your book? What's the benefit? What do you see other people getting from it too?
Well, it's a totally a different way of navigating life. It's not about efforting and working and striving and competing. It's about tranquility, peace, serenity, joy, self-expression, inspired action. You just feel like you can finally be yourself. You're not trying to please others. Your life is guided more with more wisdom. It just feels like you know what you're supposed to be doing. You know you're supposed to be here now. And you know, a lot of people, and I went through this phase where there's about 10 years where I read every spiritual book under the sun, and I still didn't get it. And once you really start to practice it and practice and change your habits, you start to see evidence. And that's when it really clicks. When you see evidence of thoughts in your head, it really takes hold, and then you start practicing and you can't get enough of it then. And you were instrumental in teaching me. Once I started getting the signs, you and the elders were like, okay, now can you notice the smallest thought that you have, or the smallest vibration is throwing off this thing. And once you become aware of that, you become amazed, I think, at the power you really have. So it's quite an awakening. And hopefully my goal is that this book will take all those people that are frustrated, they're reading the books, they're getting no traction, they don't know what else to do. And hopefully this will get them over the hump like it got me over the hump.
Oh, I think it definitely will. Like I said, it just gets to the point, and it's so beneficial. It's not just, I mean, your stories are stories, but your stories have an absolute lesson within every single paragraph of it. I think people are really gonna, if they go about it with their vacuum opened, they will get a lot of good information from the frequency that you were on when you wrote this book.
Yeah,
For sure. I love the part when you said it opens up a vacuum. I love that. That's pretty much what happened to you, I think. When we started working together, it was just like the elders just like really fine-tuned you and really started, you know, like when you were getting your signs and talking, then they just went, yes, that one, and that one. And then let's talk about that. And let's talk about that thought you thought last week about blah, 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 blah. And they were, you know, they were really picking you apart, but what they were doing was they were taking your dial and they were just really just focusing in exactly on that radio station. You know, like when you have a radio and you're really trying to get that perfect signal, I think that's what being a clear vessel is really a big part of it. And that's what you went through and have explained so eloquently in the book. And from that, I can see a huge change in your overall happiness and the ease at which your life is flowing now, I think, from what I'm hearing.
And so it's interesting. It's very much a spiritual book, but I've had some friends that aren't even into the spirituality, and they found it very helpful because I share dozens of very practical tips. Some are more spiritual, some are practical, but I'm kind of shocked at the spectrum of readers that are enjoying this. I think it's safe to say they're all in the awakening process somewhere. Some don't really know it yet. Some maybe are well along, and there's a lot of deep stuff for them, but it's really blown my mind, the wide audience that's been attracted to it. So hopefully it's very practical. The other thing you mentioned that there's so much in it, but as you know, I had to cut about 100 pages out of it. There's so much good stuff, and it's so exciting, and I could share, you know, dozens of stories that all say the same thing. And I just kind of learned, well, my goal is not to pound them over the head with it. Let's give them one example of everything, and they can choose to believe or not. But hopefully there's enough practical stuff that people can change their way they go about navigating this world.
That was one of my questions for you. When you were writing the book, who were you imagining picking it up at the bookstore? Who were you imagining reading it? I know I do that a lot. When I'm doing something, I imagine the other side responding back. Did you do that? Maybe you didn't even do that when you wrote the book.
Well,
were you doing that? So who were you imagining?
Well, it started off, the first time I sat down, I asked my spirit guides, after I kind of got the sign that you're going to write a book, and I'm like, how do you write a book? I said, where do you start? And they said, well, write down that one. I call it the God Love Hoffman story. Maybe we'll share it later on. And my thought was, at the time, I'm writing it for those the more advanced spirituality type people that are playing with the higher energies that you were teaching me with. I think that's the fun stuff. It wasn't my goal to help the people that are down and out, even though it'd be great if it would, but I wanted to do the master's level class. And so I started writing that, and I really downloaded everything. The spirit guides led me on different trips, and it was kind of a fun process. But then I got the high level stuff done, and I'm like, well, people are going to pick this up, and I can't just jump into the high level stuff. So I started writing for the people that are just awakening. And so that's kind of the first half, and then it all kind of came together. But so that was the process of how it evolved and who it was for. And I like to say that, the spirit guides made me write it. I don't think I even wrote half of it. So it's more of a question. Who were they writing it for?
I was just going to say the elders were just talking as you were talking, and they just said, well, we kind of dictated a lot of where the book went and what he said.
I keep saying, whenever I come to a kind of a stalemate, I ask the spirit guys, I say, well, what do you want to do? It's your book.
Yeah, that's so funny. It was definitely a channeled, you are such a clear vessel that they're like, yeah, let's do this together, because you are a clear enough vessel where you could even do something like that, which is just phenomenal. There was two things I wanted to ask you about that. I'll get to the second one in a second. Well, no, let's do the second one first. Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you is, can you explain to the readers, a lot of times in the book you say, I was told to look for a sign. I was told to look for an answer for this or whatever. And I said to myself, well, I'm going to ask him, how did you know that? How did you know you were told something? How did you know to go look for a sign? Where are you getting that information from? So tell me your process on that so that other people can know that too, because that's one of the key things in life that people need to do, is be able to recognize that. And you just like wrote it down like nonchalant in the book. Well, I was told this, and I was told that. Well, how did you know that?
Well, and I always joke with you that I wish I was psychic. This would be a lot easier if I was psychic. And you're like, we're all psychic. And
you are.
My channel of communication is less direct and clear than yours. So you're right. So how did I start learning? Well, it really, during my divorce, when I bottomed out, and everything that I knew how to guide life with was pulled out from under me. And I'm like, I give up. I yelled out to God that night, and I said, just give me the frickin' rules. I've done everything you've asked, and this is where I end up, and you're nowhere to be seen. Just give me the frickin'
Tell people where you ended up. Tell people where you ended up when you yelled that. Tell people, where did you end up?
Down by the river. Yeah. I was sitting down by the frozen river in January, and, contemplating suicide. I don't know if I was thinking about it that particular night, but it's kind of an ongoing thought that, boy, is this really worth it anymore? And that was kind of an ongoing thought. So I had a lot of garbage to take out. But that night, I did hear a voice that just said, we need you. So I'm like, okay.
Okay. You heard a voice.
Okay.
What
Not
do you think that is?
It was a thought.
I know. I know.
Like
it's called the clairaudient.
It's
good for you. You're so clear. You just naturally do it. And that's why I wanted to point out to people. You're so talented in that way. It's just part of your consciousness. And I love that. I just love that about you. And you just take this as, well, I was told this. Okay, so keep telling your story.
I never trusted it. I didn't believe it, frankly, at that point in time. I just thought it was a thought. I'm like, what was that? Just a thought. And then it really changed. Getting back to that God Love Hoffman story, I was in the state park and still down and out, and I was the only one in the park. And as I got out of the truck, they said, look for the sign. And it was just a thought again. I'm like, okay, here's another one of those stupid thoughts. It doesn't mean anything. And I kept hearing it. I started looking for signs. I'm like, yep, nothing. Just it was just a thought. Then at the near the very end of my trip, I got this big observation tower. There's this big sign. I'm reading it, and it's talking about the sign and who built it. I'm like, nothing. See, nothing. And then they yelled at me. They said, "Look at the sign." And I looked down, and there's a plaque, and it said this tower was paid for by one of the contributors was someone with the last name Godlove/Hoffman. And
What are the odds? There are no odds for that. There are no
yeah,
odds for that.
yeah, obviously that still chokes me up. It's like that's when I knew I am not alone. What I'm hearing is real. They are with me, and so then I'm like, okay, pay attention. So,
That's so cool. That is so cool. That's one of the coolest stories in the book, and I absolutely can't wait for everybody else to be able to read it too. And the part when you said they were shouting at you to look at the sign. So how did you feel that when you knew they were shouting at you? Explain to me what your senses were on that? Because you're up on a tower, you're pissed off, because you don't hear anything. Then what? What did
it's
you
almost
hear?
like your own thought, like you're thinking to yourself, like if you're thinking, should I pull over and get gas now or should I get it later? It's just like your own voice, your own thoughts. So I had a real hard time differentiating between my thoughts and their thoughts. But their thoughts are a lot better than mine. So that's when I started like, oh, that's a good thought. That must be
Well, you
inspiring.
knew it, or actually after you saw the sign, then you realized that was a real thought. I'm thinking maybe too. That happens a lot too.
Yeah, then I
You know?
knew that was
Yeah.
meant to be.
Hmm.
That was all the confirmation I needed. I'm like, you are here for me. Finally, I've been looking
Yeah.
for you my whole life, and that changed everything. And then so I from there, I got better. I was doing meditation and all these things that we all read about, but I still wasn't quite there. That was oh, it was still several years before I met you, and and I kind of went through another phase where I was kind of getting suicidal. Um, and then I came to you because I was trying all these things, but it still wasn't taking hold. And then you kind of put me over the edge with the advice from the elders. And one other little funny story, I call them God winks, that I got right near that phase. I was going for a walk in the neighborhood, and I'd like to close my eyes, and I'd hear the gravel crunch under my feet. And periodically, I'd open an eye to make sure I'm not in the ditch or somewhere. And so I closed my eyes again. I heard this paper crunch underneath my feet. And so I stopped and looked, and there's a little 4x4 piece of paper with a smiley face that said, "Smile, God loves you." I'm like, okay, you're still with me. So that's a story that's not in the book. There's so many stories I had to exclude, so it was tough, but yeah.
Oh, I like that one. I thought that was fresh because I'm like, I haven't heard that one. So, yes, I love that. That is, I mean, what are the odds of that? Like I always say, there are no odds.
It's
Are no
really
odds.
fun as I share these tips with friends, even every week, every day I'm getting signs, but I'm friends who've read the book and friends who are listening to me, they're getting signs all over. I got a call yesterday. They were following these license plate numbers, and they're like, I got it like the exact 4 numbers 3 times in a row. They're like, what are the odds? And the number has a personal significance to them. So it's really cool when you see other people start to become aware and start to listen, and then life does become more joyful, more easy, more guided. I think that's the biggest word, guided.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I
really
hope that people get out of the book too. I'm
it's
sorry, you
you know it's I used to think this was such a tough world to live in when I was using the efforting way, and now I've learned it's such a supportive, helpful world. Everything you need will be provided. Just get clear, be aware, follow the signs, and you just every day's magical. I know you get signs probably every minute. I get them every
pretty
day.
much.
Yeah. So hopefully we can make everyone a clear vessel so they can lead a life
Absolutely.
and throw that efforting crap away.
When it started happening to me, it freaked me out. It took me, it would take me maybe 60 signs saying the same thing before I would put it in the done pile of, okay, I'll listen to you on that.
Whoa.
I mean, I'm like, yeah, I think you're telling me something, but I'm just going to blow it off because I think it's just my own head. And I think I was just told something else, but I think I'm just going to kind of, I don't think that's really a thing. And then they just kept doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. I'm like, okay, that's a thing. I'll write that down. So it took a long time for me to trust it. I call it putting it in the done file. You know, first of all, it's in the maybe file, then it's in the, okay, that's done. I believe that one. And then it's in the done. Like, I can't ignore that anymore.
One story that you told that I think just shows how much you live your life like this. You were on your motorcycle at a family reunion or something. You're trying to get home and avoid the rain clouds. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And you just listened on when to leave and whether to turn right or left to avoid the cloud. And you got home perfectly right before the rain came. And I'm like, that's how you lead your life every day, with intuition, listening to your heart, the signs. And they don't teach us that growing up in the middle.
They don't. That's why they need your book, Steve. I made a conscious decision in the spring of 2017. The spring of 2017, I made a conscious decision to live in my flow and listen to my path of least resistance at all times, which I learned from listening to Abraham Hicks videos, who and the elders teaching me together. And I just said, okay, I'm just going to start listening to my loudest thing. And so I just learned to really tune into that. And so I've been doing that now, consciously doing that since the spring of 2017. So what's that? 18, 19, 20, 3 years, 3.5 years now. And it has absolutely, totally realigned the efficiency at which my life is lived. It's very much more efficient now, very much more efficient. I definitely, I'm like, I feel like a nudge to go do something. I might have my day planned out, and then something else comes up that's louder, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to divert and go do that. And that's the loudest thing I need to do today. And then I'll find out 2 days later why they gave me that nudge, because the situation changed and I wouldn't have been able to do that thing as effortlessly on that day because something else was going to come up and make me not be able to get that thing done. So that's how I live every day, and it's really helped me out a lot.
And kind of a big lesson from that is you can't, that you've taught me, you can't judge based on the circumstances we see. We don't know whether this is good or bad. And one example of that is, and you know, I'm still learning this stuff like we all are. Well, we're always going to be learning. But I was really in the flow, in a happy spot, learning to love my job despite certain constraints. And a job offer came it wasn't an offer, but I thought I had a job in my back pocket that I was really excited about. And the elders were like, yeah, go for it. If it feels good, do it.
I remember that.
And then the job got yanked out from under me the last minute. I'm like, what was that about? That feels like I just got kicked in the gut. And the elders were like, well, quit your whining. You're in the flow. That's just another sign you were in the flow. It wasn't perfect for you, but it's a sign that something better is coming. I'm like, oh, if you put it that way.
Right.
Even when you're flying high, in the high energy, you think, oh, I just got kicked in the gut. No, you didn't. You always teach me. Always assume you're in the flow. Always.
Right. Always assume we're up in the flow, and that what happens to us, and so there's multiple perspectives to be had from every situation. And if we're not seeing it from a positive perspective, that means we're not in the flow on that particular moment or in that moment, you know. So when you saw that as a kick in the gut, you jump down out of your flow for a minute to look at it from an old frequency. And the elders are like, no, get back up there and then look at it.
Yeah,
and they help us
right.
many times.
Yep.
Many times, you know, that's what they're there for. They're there to help keep us tuned up. And that's why being a clear vessel is so important, because when you are a clear vessel, you can ask them and say, hey, universe, can you please help me see this with clarity? If we're seeing it from a negative point of view, it's not clear at that point. Most likely we are not seeing the highest vibrating perspective on that situation, which is why I love the tools you've given in your book. You've given so many good tools. You just lay it out for people, and your meditations and your affirmations. It's just really, if people want to know how to get in their flow and stay there, they need to buy your book, because that's exactly what you do so eloquently, along with personal stories, which I like. Because like I said, it's not written like a textbook. It's not just a how-to book. It's really not. It's really a book about your life,
Yeah.
and how you went through it, which I love. That's why it's such a good read for me. It just flowed through, because it's all, I love hearing stories. So I love that. Do you have anything that's sticking in your mind that you want to share about your book that I haven't covered yet?
You know, you can make this stuff so simple, or you can make it complex, and that's kind of the fun part of navigating this earth. You know, you can just be clear, and good things are going to happen, or you can play with the high energies until, you know, you hit a bump in the road and then you need to recenter. But, you know, I think the three takeaways I'd give people, and that the book gives people, is one, we're not alone. I think I've made that obvious. Vibrations really work, whether it's a positive attitude or whether you're just imagining something or visualizing something. If it affects how you feel, it creates in the spirit world, for lack of a better word. And then finally, that life is more about ease than effort. And that's been a hard one. I still struggle with that frequently. I want to work. I come up with a great idea, an inspired idea. I get clear, I get into the flow, and I get an idea, and then my mind likes to step in and say, okay, I'll take it from here. And then I have to, I'm like, wait. You're not the best tool for this, brain. Let's get quiet again. Let's listen to the heart. The heart's driving. We'll tell the brain when we need you.
That is great. And you know what? That's 99% of our problems down here on Earth. Everybody has that. You know, you're so explaining, I'm sure, what most people watching this will say, me too, when they say that,
Yeah.
which is why I love that. Oh, you said the other day, you said functioning from a heart consciousness in your blog. Everybody, his blog is phenomenal. It's so motivating and uplifting. So make sure you check out Steve's blog too. And you had said operating from a heart consciousness, and I went, whoa, that is so big. Can you explain what you meant by that a little bit? So people can understand.
Yeah, it's you know, a second ago I said this can be really easy. We've all heard follow your bliss, and it can be as simple as that. What feels good to you? Are you doing something because someone else thinks you should be doing it? Is that the expectations of you? Are they your perceived expectations, or why are you doing it? And the only reason you should be doing it is because it's a desire of yours in your heart. Just listen to yourself. What do you really want to do? And that's what you should go do. A big lesson the elders, and this is a quote I just love, they gave me back in January. They said, if what you are doing is work, you're either doing the wrong thing or you're doing it in the wrong way. At the time I was doing this project, I'm like, well, I don't want to give up, so I'm going to try it in a different way. I'm going to try it with a good attitude. And that still didn't work. It still felt icky in my heart and my gut. It wasn't what I wanted to do. So I'm like, oh, it must be the wrong thing. So if what you're doing is work, you're either doing it in the wrong way or you're doing the wrong thing completely. So follow your bliss.
So tell me what happened after that, where you actually knew it was right. Tell me the difference. How did you know the difference when something right came along? What happened then?
That's a great question. It's excitement. When you see yourself get excited, something comes along, you're like, oh yeah, that would be fun. That would be great. That would be easy. That would be cool. Listen to your excitement. Just like when I heard myself do your reading and I said, this is gold. I'm like, ooh, I noticed. I was aware enough to say,
right,
you were excited about that. You're like, you need to share that. Well, let's go with that.
Right. Yeah. Like that's how the book came about, because you followed a heart consciousness impulse
Yeah.
and said, okay. As I mean, who knew? I mean, who knew 5 years ago that you were going to write a book? You know, you had no idea. And it came
Right.
up and you trusted enough to follow it, and look where it can lead you. That's a big message for people in reading the book. I feel that, you know, the universe is smarter than us and can always leads us to the highest vibrating life for us if we so choose to go to it. Um, and you're teaching them how to do it with the least amount of effort possible, which is why I love the book so much.
Well, and I think hopefully the audience is getting today, you and I just go back and forth. Here's how we did this time, this time. There's just example after example of how you stay in the flow, follow the flow, listen to your heart. It, it can get kind of simple and boring, or it can get extremely exciting. I think in my favorite part of the book is some of your readings where, you know, I practice these tools and I don't really know if they're working or not. And then I get a reading from you saying, hey, Holly, where am I at? And they're like, they could quote word for word things I said to myself. They'd interpret the energies I was creating. And they basically confirm that, boy, you are creating all of this stuff in the spirit world, that it's coming all into alignment for you. Just keep it up. And
I
that's,
love it when they do that.
it's just, it gives you hope. I think that's a big thing. Hopefully the book, for the people that are still struggling, hope is one thing I hope they take out of it. And, you know, usually when you're on the lower end of the emotional spectrum, hope is a step up from where they are now. And then once you get a little hope, and it just, you know, if you go from, I always say, try to just feel one run better today. First, you wake up today, you say, how am I feeling? Oh, I feel like a 3 on a scale of 10. Okay, well, let's try to get to a 4. If you can just work your way to neutral, negative to neutral is positive momentum.
Absolutely.
And then it just, you know, so that I call that the clear phase. And then it doesn't stop there. The momentum just takes you into the high flying end. And then you're dealing with all these great opportunities and ideas like, should I write a book, or should I invest in this, or should I take that job? That ends much more fun than.
I agree. I think one of the most useful tools that we we can access as a clear vessel is the feeling of what's coming, because we many times will be working on manifesting something, and you know, I said that wrong, working on manifesting something, but effortlessly manifesting something.
Playing with
And
manifestations.
yes, that's right. And you know, it hasn't shown up in the physical yet, and I think one of the biggest things that the elders helped you with was to tell you, look at all these things you have up in the air right now that are in the process of becoming. You've been creating this, you've been creating that, you've been creating this with your thoughts. And all these things, you just have to give them a little bit more time before they all come down into physical. And it's kind of, they kind of let us access the other side of the dimension where we can't see that all day long. We can't walk around with a crystal ball going, oh, I see 5 thoughts becoming things. You know, that's going to be cool. And so not giving up, that first epitaph that you have in the book where you say, don't give up too soon,
Yeah.
is big, 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 big. So I think that because you're a clear enough vessel that you knew and heard things with your heart consciousness, then look what's coming together now. And it's, you've got that momentum shifted over to what you want. And that's what people quit before that happens. So much, I think 98% of the readers in the book will probably have something that they're going to say that they were trying for, wanting to get in life, and that they just didn't think it was going to happen. But really, if you guys really want those things and you keep up with believing that they can happen long enough, the physical dimension has no choice but to reciprocate back to you what you're working on.
One
And
of
that's
the
one thing that you're really good at.
one of the favorite tools you and the elders provided to me. You know, I came to you and I was complaining, well, my job's kind of a struggle and money's tight and I have this problem, that problem. And they're like, you're missing all the golden cups filled up behind you. You're sitting there looking at all these filled cups in front of you. And they're pretty good at slapping me up alongside the head.
I remember that.
And so it tells you that there's so many good things coming your way if you just allow it. Get out of your way, get clear, and it's coming. So I always focus on,
Yeah.
and I wonder what's in those cups behind me right now. And just, that just shifts my feeling right there.
Thank you for shifting me right now. You just shifted me too. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I got to do that. I got to think more about those cups behind me for a minute too in my day. That's
We all
good.
have,
That's good stuff. There's good stuff in those cups back there. Really good
right?
stuff. So yeah, we have to toast ourselves with those cups, not the cups that are in front of us, for sure. Absolutely.
It's
Well,
all
I
about
love it. It's
another way to rephrase all this, especially once you get to the clear phase. It's the clear phase. It's about the power of your focus. We live in duality. What are you going to focus on? The spilled cups or the filled cups? Um, every day you can sit and look out your window. Are you going to look and complain you have to shovel the snow, or are you going to be excited about what you get to do in it? Or there's it's totally about what you focus on. If you tell me where your focus is now, we can tell you what your future is going to be like. Are you focusing on negative things or positive things? And it takes habit and tools, and you just have to keep practicing. And what I love about all this is it's not like you have to be perfect all day long. A little bit, if you can do 5 minutes of good thinking in the morning or 5 at lunch, do more if it feels good. But a little bit is really powerful, and you start to see changes, and then you get the traction, and you're doing things right. That's when it really gets exciting. But I hope readers don't think they have to, oh my goodness, how am I going to incorporate 30 tools into my life? Just
right,
make yourself feel a little bit better right now and keep doing that.
right, right. Pick one tool a month, even, you know? Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Make it into steps that are doable for you. Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
powerful
Love
stuff.
it. Is there anything else you want to cover?
That really, I think, gives a good, maybe not just a broad overview, but some in-depth analysis and case studies and stories for people to go with. So I really don't have anything else to add, but I did have one question for you. You mentioned Abraham Hicks, and their books were influential to both of us, I know, but I've often wondered, is Abraham the same as the elders? I kind of think of this collective consciousness of wisdom, and I've come to the conclusion, well, I'm not going to give you my answer. I want to know your answer.
Vibrationally, to me, they're not.
Okay.
Vibrationally. Everybody has their own vibrational signature and cannot be faked. And so when I first met the elders, well, they had been speaking to me for a while, but I didn't know what was going on. First, I started working with my spirit guide directly, and I'd been working with my spirit guide for about a year. When one day the elders, and then this like somebody just started giving me the signs all day long. So I'm like, I'm talking to my spirit guide, my spirit guide's telling me things, but then I'm getting these little, things jumping out. I call it jumping out. These things would jump out all the time. And the jumping out things seem to be coming from somebody, but not specifically my spirit guide. And so then when the elders stopped me and asked me if I wanted to take a journey with them, it was like that light that you get when you die, that you step into, came down, and they were showing me that light, or they were showing me an alternate trajectory that I could take. And they asked me if I would step into the one with the light and take that journey. And when they did that, it was like angels or higher talking to me. I was like, whoa, this is God. And who are these guys? And they just kind of said, whoa, like there was this big energy, but then telepathically they were saying in my head, would you like to step into this journey that we're asking you to take? It will help many other people, and it's a journey of personal expansion. They didn't really say help other people. They just said it's a journey of my own personal expansion. Would I like to expand myself? And I said, yes, I will do that. And I gave them a couple of conditions. I said, okay, but this and this and this. And they said, agreed. And I said, okay, I'll take the journey. So I committed 100% to taking the journey that they asked me to take. So that's my
Okay.
initial vibration for them is that. That's all I know.
One
When I
other
speak to
question.
Abraham,
Yeah.
oh, oh,
Go
well,
ahead.
I guess I should say, I guess I should just say Abraham is similar but different. It's probably just facets of the same, soul group, or like the same level of souls. I don't know, because Abraham always says we are source, and these guys seem, they just seem different. But I have no idea if they're all, we're all one. We're all part of the same collective consciousness. So, I just kind of feel like different parts of it step forward. That's
Hmm.
what's happening. Different parts of it are coming out. But
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't seem like exactly the same to me energetically. So it's like slices of the same slices of God. They're different slices of God, and these are some other slices of God.
Yeah.
That's how it seems to me.
I know we're starting to run a little bit long, but I have one other question for you that I'm curious about. And, you get these tidbits of information. I know you channeled George Floyd, right?
Hmm.
And and some other sources. And I'm just curious where you see us as a society kind of in this awakening process. Is there some good into all this, or do you have a feel for, the what this planet's going through, where we're going, just kind of a general direction?
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those of you that want to know more about that, you can listen to my previous videos for the last 6 months or so on my channel, because they might say they're about one thing, like George Floyd speaks or the coronavirus, but really they're about the consciousness of the planet and where we're going with it. So everything I do is about the consciousness of the planet and where we're going with it. We are in the final phases of awakening the planet right now, but most of the people aren't awake. So we're in it's going to go fast from now on until most people are awake. It's going to go very, very quickly. The next 50 years on the planet are going to be unprecedented. The next 5 years, it's going to be a lot of people. While they start to awake, they will think everything's in turmoil. But when you start to awaken and shift, I call it the turbulent period. It's kind of like going through turbulence in an airplane. When things have to reorder and reshift, you might choose to see it as everything's going wrong. Like people with the coronavirus this year, I don't see it anyway like 98% of the people are explaining it. To me, it's all awakening and good. That's happening with the planet and shifting to higher vibrations of consciousness. And we're on a roller coaster ride right now. And, the speed at which the planet will awaken will be greatly accelerated through some more events that have to happen. They haven't happened yet. Once they happen, people will have more, they will believe faster and quicker, because they will have seen some things with their own eyes that they believe. So then from that point on, after they're like, okay, well, I can't deny this because these events happen to the planet. I really can't deny that that's real. Then, bam, then we're really going to go fast towards a massive shift in consciousness to a higher. So as far as the amount of awakening goes, this is the beginning of this is back in Jesus's time, and this is where we are, and this is fully awakened. I'd say we're like to about here with the process. We've
Wow,
got from here to here to go.
that's exciting.
But that's going to be the most tumultuous right there for a little
So,
while. And then when we get on the other side, it's going to be like, what?
well, the spirit guides have said there's divine timing to this book. Maybe my book will help people navigate that
Absolutely.
turbulent period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why you're doing that work now. You've been called up. The many people that are supposed to be teachers of others, the last 7 years for them have been a lot of their awakening time. And you were definitely one of those people. You're definitely here to do that. Absolutely you are.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm an
Absolutely.
honored and humbled servant, if that's the case. So,
Absolutely.
all
So
right.
should we tell people about the fun treat coming from that you decided to do for the first viewer to comment on the video?
Oh yeah, we are going to give a free book away, and you'll be able to access the first person to comment on the YouTube video on your YouTube channel, right, Holly?
Positively. Comment
Pos-
positively.
Positively.
The first person
So,
to comment positively.
there we go. Yeah, we're going to give a book away. So look for this video, and if you comment positively, you'll get a free book coming your way. And for the rest of you, I think Holly mentioned it, but you can always go to clearvessels.com, and we're taking pre-orders right now, and there'll be free shipping, and it'll be a signed copy. If you want to wait, the book is going to be launched on November 13th. It should be available on that date or within a week for sure. So look for it in November, and hopefully it'll be on bookshelves everywhere within a year.
Awesome. I thought it was November 20th. They got moved up to the 13th.
Well, the launch date's the 13th, and then sometimes it takes about a week to finalize the publishing. So there's a launch date and a publishing date. I don't really get all this book world stuff, but official launch date's the 13th. It might take a few days. I say the 20th just to give it a week, but that week
Okay.
it'll be on Amazon. There will also be an ebook version available. I'm going to make a PDF version also available on my website if you don't want to have to buy anything through Amazon. You'll be able to get a PDF version much cheaper. So it's all coming.
No, that's phenomenal. I love it. Love it. Love it. And also, you have a great blog and you're followable. Where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, Facebook, Steven James Hoffman, and also on Instagram.
With a V, still with a V, not a PH.
With a V, yeah. And also on Instagram. So I'm kind of new to social media, but I'm learning. So elders
So
are
Steven James Hoffman on both Facebook and Instagram with a V and Steven, right?
correct. Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Awesome. And if people have any other questions, they can just contact you through the website as well, and you can get directed to if you have problems finding any of his pages.
And what's your website, Holly?
I'm on Holly Burns Psychic on everything. Holly Burns Psychic on Facebook, Instagram, and my website is hollyburnspsychic.com. And my YouTube channel is also Holly Burns Psychic. So real easy to find. Holly with a Y and Burns. So if you're on this channel, you know how to spell it. If you're watching the video, you know how to spell it. So yes, awesome. Welcome you all. Welcome you all.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Steven. And I look forward to seeing what happens in the next year with the book.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.